All right, so I was watching a video on YouTube the other day by Seb on Guitar. I'll link it in the description. But pretty much he's recreating MK.Gee's guitar tone using all of the same gear, like VG8, Tascam, the Ranger, Reverb. But I came across a comment that pretty much is going against anyone like inspired by or recreating MK.Gee's tone. So it says, the frustrating part about videos like this is that people like MK.Gee and everyone else we're trying to sound like are just experimenting. Then you have all these people trying to do their best to recreate something to figure out what gear they need to sound like a certain artist, driving up prices of that gear, but also not creating unique sounds or music. So I feel like I just disagree with this mentality completely. Like, if you think about any progress in music, especially if it comes to guitar, like Jimi Hendrix and the way he would play, and then the amount of people that wanted to like sound like him after that, and copied his style of playing, like the type of processing he would use and that distortion. So I think people being inspired by a certain sound is not a problem at all. That's how art progresses. There's a small portion of artists, producers, and musicians that experiment, and everyone else is inspired by them and kind of follows their footsteps. So yeah, there's a lot of different roles. If we're talking professional musicians and producers, there's a lot of different roles, and not all of them are meant to be experimenters anyway, or don't want to be. That's just something you can do with music. And I think being yourself and creating your own voice isn't always experimenting in that same way. I think there's different ways to go about it. So to talk about the gear, it's like everyone's trying to look at MK.Gee's gear and see what he's using to sound like him. And then in turn, it drives up the price because he's popular and more people want to sound like him. And that kind of sucks, but it's not the people's fault who love the sound. It's just the fact that there's not enough of those units in circulation, but that's not the consumer's fault. And I think it's also good that people are looking into the gear he used, because again, it's like progressing art and guitar playing. And even though these aren't new devices, like the way he's playing them and using them feels new to a lot of people. And if I hadn't come across MK.Gee, I never would have gotten into like these guitar synths that have just like changed guitar for me completely. And from that, I've just been more interested in experimenting in general. Like, there's another company called, I think, Submarine Pickups, and they have a different type of thing where it's like a pickup that has a different cable for each string, so you can process each string differently. And I'm not sure I would have come across things like that either if it wasn't for MK.Gee kind of pushing me to have more interest in guitar and what's possible. So yeah, I think blaming people that like the sound for driving the price up just isn't fair. Like, if that just means that there's an opening in the market for a company to make something closer to a VG8 because the Boss, whatever it is, like something 8000s, they just don't look as nice. And like, I know people often want an authentically vintage device, but if they made something that looked like a VG8 or is at least more similar to it and followed that style a bit more, like, I think a company could do really well with that. So I think blaming consumers for the rise in price just doesn't make sense. It just means that there's an opening in the market for like a new company to kind of step in somewhere, because like guitar synths is not a very big market, and I think it's like underrated. Like, I'm surprised that it's not more common because it's such a cool instrument. So it would just make sense if there's more units, and then people would care less about these vintage VG8s that are going to be hard to take care of anyway and are going to cause more problems. If there's units that look like it and feel like it, then, I mean, I personally wouldn't care. Sound like a certain artist driving up prices of gear, but also not creating unique sounds or music. And that goes back to just the idea that everyone needs to be some entrepreneur, edge of music experimenter, which is just not the case. Like, again, I think a lot of people are just going to be playing guitar for their own enjoyment. And some people who are musicians and copying that tone, that's still fine. Like, they can do whatever they want, whatever makes them happy. Like, playing in a MK.Gee style is so fun. I think that's a reason a lot of people have latched onto it, because it's so expressive. Like, a guitar is an expressive instrument. There's so many sounds you can already make out of it. But all the things that he's added to guitar just adds more layers of expressiveness and playing enjoyment. So, yeah, it makes sense to me that people would want to make that sound even if it's not unique. So yeah, I just think it's kind of like not the right mindset to have on this stuff. If you want to copy MK.Gee directly, there's like no problem with that, because at the end of the day, like, no one is ever gonna copy him like close enough to be MK.Gee, because he kind of changes his sound so much anyway. Like, from when I started listening to him and it was more like vibey bedroom pop stuff to what he is now, like, in the same amount of time, he's going to find something else that interests him, and he's going to keep exploring new sounds, and he's going to keep experimenting. So in that matter, no one will ever be him, because he's always going to be moving just based on, I can imagine, what he finds interesting and inspiring. But yeah, I just think it's weird to care that other people love the tone that much and the sound.